The key to success is being learning based. It's one of the 6 personal perspectives. I'll cover that in just a second. But this idea of being learning based is a big deal. And I just got a blog today from Seth Godin. I would just highly recommend any of you, Seth Godin, Godin. I've been getting his daily blogs for over 10 years because it's both instructive, provocative, and he's a marketing genius, and particularly in this day and age. But he's kind of a philosopher king too. And today he did a post that's just perfect for the fact that you're here, and I want to honor you for taking the time and having the focus to be here. And the same thing for Andy and the whole team, because they've made this happen. And here's what he said. I just want to read it to you. He said, "You can learn about anything now. 30 years ago, that statement was ridiculous. But now in just one generation, we put everything you need to know about anything you want to know just a click away. The hard part isn't accessing to it. The hard part is to find a cohort and a system that helps you do it, because learning comes from doing." Well, there's the key of Keller Williams. See, we're doers, and we have a system you can access, and you're with cohorts. That's what you have in your market center. I mean, I really think market centers should be renamed energy centers and intelligence centers, because that's what they are. You go in, you plug in, you power up, you get what you need, and you go out, take action, and do what you want. And then one other paragraph I want to read of his, because listen to this, it's really relevant today. He said, "Learning takes effort, and it's hard to..." Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I got muted. Anyway, it says, let me just repeat that. It says, "Learning takes effort, and it's hard to find the effort when the world is in flux, when we're feeling uncertain, and when we're being inundated with bad news. But that's the moment when learning is most important, more important than ever."
How it works.
Okay, we all right? Can you hear me, Loredana?
We got you.
Okay, all right. I just want to be sure, because it was giving me a strange message about being muted. And I went, no, you can't mute me. So let me tell you what I want to do. That I've got a plan of action. The plan of action is I want to talk about right now, things to do right now in my mind. You're getting a lot of this from Keller Williams and a lot of it from other places, and please plug into that and use it. Learn it from agents who are actually doing business in this market today, who are doing virtual tours and doing virtual open houses and doing contracts without anyone having to be together in any room together. I mean, there is a way to do our business, and the need for buyers and sellers of our services is going on as we do this. Now, when we come out of this, it will even be more drastic. So our readiness to be able to serve our clientele when this passes, and it too shall pass. I mean, that's the other thing. I get another daily feed called the Daily Stoic, which I would highly recommend to you. It's called the Daily Stoic. And it comes out of those great Roman and Greek philosophers who are Stoics to say, here's how you stay calm in the midst of chaos. And they had to live through chaos. For example, Marcus Aurelius, his whole term as emperor of Rome was during a extended multi-year epidemic, worse than the one we're having, worse by far for the world than the one we're having. And yet he kept his cool, his calm, and his leadership during that time. So we have to do that too. That's the point. So I'm going to dive into that. Then I want to give some perspective about why you are in the right place with Keller Williams. There is no better place for a real estate agent to be today than with Keller Williams. All the other ones are laying people off. They do a little short online sort of, we do training online and then it disappears. Their stock, the ones that are public companies, their stock is plunging like mad. Realogy, Realogy already was several $1 billion in debt, and its price went way down below $2. Zillow, same thing. EXP, same thing. All these public companies are losing their value. See, the neat thing about Keller Williams, and I want you to know this, is that we have no debt. This company has no debt, zero debt. And Gary Keller and Mo Anderson and Joe Williams, the primary owners, Gary, of course, dominant, they're committed to this for the long haul. And I can promise you, because I know Gary personally, he loves the fiduciary real estate agent. He's designed this company to put that agent at the heart of the real estate transaction, no matter what happens. And I will tell you, you can see it. You can see it on KW Connect, the energy that's coming to the support of our people and our agents right now. And we know it's like we can't do things. I mean, they know, because I'm not exactly with them, they know they can't do things for you, but they can do things with you. They can help you, right? And so they can show you the way. So be plugged in to KW Live, KW Connect, all these things that are going on. It's a great resource. And the other thing to remember is this company is in business. The other thing to remember is that you are supported locally by the owners that brought this call to you. You know, the leaders and owners. One of the things that makes Keller Williams different from others is the commitment we have to local leadership and ownership. We care about our OPs and our team leaders and our MCAs. They're in our model. Why? Well, because we know the independent contractor needs a place of support. They need a broker to take care of them when there's issues over transactions. They need someone to bring training and support. They need a place to go and be with other people. And as Seth Godin said to us, they need cohorts. In other words, we're social beings. We learn together. We learn with each other. We learn from each other. And in Keller Williams, it's so powerful. All of our teaching is done by the people that are out there doing it. All the ones that are on the KW Connect that you get to hear are people that are really out there doing it, just like our agents are. And that's always been true, by the way. We really have always learned. People say, you know, how was it that you and Gary and Jay wrote those great books? And we said, we didn't write them. We didn't write them. We met with top agents. We masterminded with them. We masterminded with millionaire investors. We talked how they did it. And then we simply did what they told us they did. And we crafted that into a book that could guide us all. So I say all of that kind of is foundational. And that's going to be second. So first thing is you. Second thing is the foundation. Third thing is I want to talk about mindset and attitude, because I have learned over my life how to be calm under pressure, how to take on more and more stress and actually invite it, and how to stay productive when you're faced with fear and doubt. Okay, those are important characteristics that help people maintain through all of their life. So let me kind of dive in. I'm going to, I think I have, do I have permission to share the screen? Share my screen?
Yes, you do.
Okay, hang on a sec. I need to go find that button. There it is, there it is. Share your video, share screen. We got it, we're coming up. Okay, I'm gonna share. And then I've got to get something full screen. Full screen, wait a minute, it's not letting me do full screen. What's going on here? This is not right. Hang on, everybody. Well, Dave, okay, view, here we go. All right, so this is what we sent out. This is what I want to deliver. There's two sources of power we have right now, our environment and the people around us. I want you to treat both of those preciously. First, your environment. Gary Keller, when he and I were writing the first 6 courses of Keller Williams University back in 1996, we started out with business courses because we not only wanted to teach our owners how to run great businesses, because in Keller Williams at that time they weren't, but we also wanted to teach our agents how to treat their own practice as a business. So we did the 6 business disciplines, and the 6th one was the productivity-specific environment. I want you to get that concept, a productivity-specific environment. And what it says is your environment determines your success. Make sure your environment supports your goals, supports your activities, and helps keep you focused. Now, in this day and age, right now, that's a problem we have. You have to create, if you're the breadwinner in your family, you have to take your work right now very seriously. This is not a time to binge on Netflix series. You know, it's not a time to, oh, let's do picnics and let's just kind of all this wonderful, loving family time. Those are all wonderful. And the kids are home, and yeah, maybe you're having to kind of figure out how to homeschool. I have some philosophies on that too, because you're not going to replace their teachers, but you can replace the motivational accountability for them to be learning based. Whatever learning tasks they're being given, or whatever you can guide them to, whatever the school is giving you online, let them go and do that, and then let them come back and tell you what they learned. That's the accountability process. I always say the same thing to mega agents. I said, if you're building a team, don't train them. Don't train them. Hold them accountable. Point them to the training they need, you know, if they're a buyer's agent, point them to Your First Home and all the skills and things that are in there. Point them to Chapter 9 out of Shift. You know, that's where all the issue is on buyers, and then have them come back to you and either tell you what they learned in detail, you question them, and demonstrate the skill that they've built. See, real learning comes from activity and accountability, not from somebody telling somebody else something. There's all those sources, and we have them now in spades on the internet, particularly with KW. I mean, you can go to anything on KW Connect, any issue that you want. You can watch the world's greatest listing presentations, buyer rep presentations, how to tell people to price it right. All those kind of things are right there. And all you have to do is send somebody to them and they role model. Well, I would do the same things with my kids, because here's the thing for you. You cannot waste your time in this hiatus from the business, in this downturn. And I'm going to talk about, you know, 3 things that you have to do, but you need an environment that does that. So if you're at home, then make sure you have an office set up at home that you can shut the door to and put a sign on it that says, Daddy or Mommy is working, earning money for our house, for our car, for put food on the table, so we can take picnics and go to Disney World sometime, right? I mean, you can blue sky the future, but they've got to know that you need time on the task right now. You need 8 hours a day, 8 to 10 hours a day, every day. And I'll tell you in a second how you spend that time. Doing the work, because there's work to do. Even if there's not immediate transactions to take care of, although many people still are doing transactions. So don't wipe that off the table. There's transactions out there to be done and ways to do them, but it's not easy, okay? It's not easy. So build that environment, build that. Now, the other thing I would say, now I don't know how you guys are running offices and things like that, but if I'm paying rent for an office space in my office, I'm going to it. I'm going to it. I'm not going to be within 6 feet of people. I'm going to use my own key to get in. I'm not going to bring customers and clients there. We're not going to have a big party. But I'm going into that workspace. I'm going into that work environment. I'm shutting the door and I'm putting the head down, putting the headphones on, firing up the computer, and I'm going to work. And I'm going to put in my time. Now, your environment needs to support that. That's all I'm saying. And part of your environment is your family and people around you. So you need to tell them why you're doing what you're doing. It's not that you don't care. It's not that you're trying to violate some government regulations or something. You're staying in the game so that you can provide for the family. Now, for those of you who are just new in real estate, this is a perfect time for you to learn the business. We'll get to that later, but you have to build an environment for learning. Okay, that's number one. Number 2 is the people around you. So first of all, only get online with and hang out with positive people. Get people around you. If anyone starts sucking their thumb or woe is me this, and the government should be doing this, and Trump should be doing this, and can you believe all this is going on? I mean, I've got my own political opinions and attitudes about what's going on and mistakes that are being made, but you know what? Those are mine. And by the way, as Stoics would tell us, those are all out of my control. So I can't give them much energy. I mean, I'm a seeker. That's the name of my memoirs book that I'm writing right now, called Seeker, A Journey Toward Wisdom. So I am a curious guy and seeker, and I've been very involved for 10 years in watching the political and economic scenes. So I care about that, and I care about the great American free enterprise system. But the point is that right now, that isn't where the action is. You know, I mean, that's my old philosophy, but I can't change any of that. So the point is, only focus on what you can change. Only focus on what you can make a difference with. You know, as the Stoics say, it's the serenity prayer. Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And those are three big aspects. That plus justice are the 4 cornerstones of the Stoic philosophy. So understand that you need no negative people around you. I'm sorry, none. And if they're in the family, then just don't listen to them, right? Maybe you can't get rid of them, but don't listen to them. Just don't let that sink into you, because you're going to find later that positivity and optimism are the key to success, and they always have been. A great psychologist. I spent years and years working on a doctorate in counseling psychology first, and then educational psychology second. And so I'm a student of this game, and I have been all the way through. And I would just tell you this. So one of my professors said to me, Dave, fundamentally, to keep it simple, he said, people have one of 2 words in their head: yes or no. He said 80% the word is no, and 20% the word is yes, and those 20% far outachieve. That's the 20-80 rule. By far and away outachieve the 80%. So the key is to keep the yes in your mind. Yes, it's possible. Yes, I can figure this out. Yes, I can get through this. Yes, I'll work together with you. Yes, I'll do whatever it takes, as opposed to all the fear-based no's. So I say that because it's an important self-understanding, and who you gather around you, who you hang out with, particularly in this time, makes a big difference. So that's one of the great advantages of being in Keller Williams. You can plug into all that positive energy that you're in the Andy Peters offices. I mean, you can plug into that with the great leaders he's brought on board, and all the systems you have in place. It's a great place to plug in. By the way, this is an aside, it's another issue, but if you have friends in the real estate business that aren't with Keller Williams, this is a perfect time for you to sponsor them back over. Come back to the place that provides the support and service that agents need and doesn't fall apart in the midst of difficult times. This is the place that cares about you. This is the place that has the power you can use. So just remember that. So those are the two things: your environment and your relationships matter. Now, what are the three priorities right now? Here's the one. Number one, the very first one is take care of your health. Take care of your personal physical health. Get exercise, eat right, get your vitamins, and whatever you can do to maintain your physicality, and then also your mental health. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later, and that of your family. Now, also take care of your financial health. There's a wonderful article that was written in the Inman, and you probably your leadership gets Inman News. It was written about 4 or 5 days ago, maybe a week ago, about the 10 things to do financially to protect yourself in these times. It's really a good article. I mean, there's a lot of pablum stuff about cut expenses and all those things we already know, but these are real things about, renegotiate your rent, or just tell your landlord you're not going to be paying, or to tell your mortgage company, sorry, I'm taking a break. I have to take a break right now. I'm doing that with my, Gina and I rent. We're looking to buy a home. That'll probably I don't know what'll happen with that. We're going to find out. She's over there picking out fixtures right now, but we'll find out whether they make us requalify or whatever goes on. But I know, because one of the things, I'm actually very much like you. My whole income is based on Keller Williams. I really, really fundamentally live off my profit share. Spend about $160,000, $170,000 a year, which is amazing that would be out of the Keller Williams profit share system. It's so powerful, but that's going to dry right up. It is. So I'm facing the same things that everybody is, and I'm going to find a way through this. I'm concerned, but I'm not worried, and I'm taking action. So one of the things I did, for example, I removed my auto pay on the apartment complex we have. So now I write a check, and if it comes to a month where there's not enough in there to write the check, I'm going to tell them sorry, because they're not going to be evicting anybody in this day and age right now. No evictions and no foreclosures, not in the short term. So it's okay to take care of yourself. That's the number one thing I'd say. Take care of yourself. To thine own self be true. Put your own oxygen mask on first. Okay, that's okay to do. That's number one. Now here's the second thing. Lead generate. Gary Keller says it. 3 to 4 hours a day. What's that mean? Call people you know. Call people who your database. See how they're doing. Just check in with them. How you doing? How things going? Just a caring call from you. By the way, if you can be the source of local information, not national information, doesn't matter, but local information about stores that are open and drugstores that are available and what their hours are, and also where they can go to get financial help. Where can they apply for an SBA loan? Anything where you can become knowledgeable in the issues that people are facing right now that are outside of real estate. Now, obviously, if there's real estate questions, have that. And then the other thing is build that relationship, because you can get them on command. Make sure that you're adding them to your command. Make sure that you're offering them to be on consumer. See, it's amazing that Gary Keller foresaw the future of real estate. I know he didn't foresee this amazing, crazy viral dip, but he, for 3 or 4 years, has been investing millions of dollars in the building of our technology for one simple reason: to create a platform that would give our agents the power to lock into the marketplace, for them to offer to consumers things they can't get anywhere else, which is what the consumer software is, and also a database and the extension of all the things around a database, marketing and mailers and all that stuff that makes real estate marketing and servicing work, powered by artificial intelligence and supported by big data. That's all underway. And I will just say one thing that I was amazed with when I joined the company was that we were keeping track. This was back 24 years ago when I joined the company, and I came from, then already 15 years in the real estate franchising business. I had been a divisional president for Century 21 out of Dallas, Texas, for 7 states. I came down there when the market was diving and turned it around. And the reason I say that was that I was amazed when I came to Keller Williams that we were collecting the financial and production data of all of our offices, even way back then. And of course, we've been doing that now for 25 years. And so the data we have about real estate transactions and personal productivity and profitability is just astounding. And that is power for all of us. So lead generation, spend the time calling people, talking to them, getting them into your database. One of the things, we said it in Shift, one of the big issues in building a database, in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, we said the core of your business is your database. Your database is your business. And we have from page 133 to 147 in MREA, all of the things about your managing your database and building it and building your spheres. And so use this time, to build that. But one of the things we said there, and then we also repeated in Shift, was one of the key steps of how you build a database is the capture phase. In other words, are you really capturing their information to put in your database? And so many of us, I learned this lesson from Gary Gentry. Gary Gentry closed the first transaction ever in the history of Keller Williams back in 1983. And he's been on the original ALC, was on the group that reinvented the company. And all of that being said, here's what he said. He said, Dave, when I go into an appointment, I can get people to talk about themselves wide open. They trust me. I ask good questions. I find out all kinds of things about them. He said, but when I leave 10, 20 minutes later, most of that I don't remember. And he said, a day later, I'm struggling to get their name. So he said, here's what I do. I come out of every appointment and I download. At that time, he said he would call his voicemail, but now he would download it on his smartphone. He said, everything that I covered right away after that, everything we talked about, where they went to school, where they moved here from, where they work, what their responsibilities are, where the kids go to school, their pets, their recreation. He said, and then I have my assistant, or now you could have a virtual assistant in Singapore, put that into your database. And then he said, here's the brilliant part of that. When I would call them back and pull up their file on my screen, there was all that information, all of it. And he said, I could enter into conversations and they couldn't believe what I could remember about them. And of course, after I talked to them 2 or 3 times, actually a lot of that was right on the top of my mind about them because I had gotten, the repetition. So I just say that, use this time to reach out to people, all kinds of people, neighbors, target markets that you have, talk to them, learn about them, how they, where they move here from, what do they like about this area, what are their future plans, and then get that information into your database. Big deal. Even if you're not just asking for listings, or asking who they need to know that or who they know that needs to buy or sell a home. Well, you could ask that, but the point is get to know them, build your relationships, get it in your database. Now, the second part of what you do, so the third part, you have to take care of yourself. Second was lead generate, learn. Use this time for personal development and education. Kerry Keller and I always said, 1/3 of your time is lead generation, 1/3 of it is training and personal skill building, and then the other 1/3 of it is doing the business. So use this time to do all of the learning you can. I mean, you should be, we're going to talk about it in a second, but rereading MREA and Shift, rereading them if maybe you never did the first time. Dive back in, because what's in there is really brilliant. And I really mean that. It's just, we really put a lot of work with a lot of people to get that information there. So do that. So those are the 3 things that I'm going to recommend that you do. Now, let's take another look at what makes the opportunity that you have here with Keller Williams and the model that it shows you about how to do business. So I'm going to quote in page 36 from MREA. Gary Keller and I, as we started to write this, we realized we had both been impacted by Tony Robbins' book, Unlimited Power. And in it, he talked about a very specific thing that we wanted to share with people. And so we got permission from Tony Robbins to do it. And on page 36, here's what we quote him, his book, from saying. He says, "Long ago, I realized that success leaves clues. The people who produce outstanding results do specific things to create those results. Actions are the source of all results. This process of discovering exactly and specifically what people do to produce a specific result is called modeling." He said, "Modeling is the pathway to excellence." Keller Williams is built on models. It's built there. You're looking at them right here. And you know, Gary, when we put these models together and started making them go, we built a company that would not be able to be challenged. I mean, we weren't at the top of the industry there. We were way down, but we knew we were the company of destiny. Why? We knew how the real estate business worked, and we knew all of the models and systems that would make it work, and we put those in place. Now, right here, I want to add one other thing that's very important to understand. Keller Williams was built in and for adversity. That's the nature of our company. Gary Keller is the leader of dealing with adversity. I want to picture this. It's 1986. He's had his office open with Joe Williams for 3 years. They're the #1 producing office in Austin. Office, not the #1 company. There may be number 9 or 7 or 8, 9 but as a single office, they're #1. And then here's what happens. His wife divorces him, and for him to keep the business, the settlement is over $1 million. He is going to have to pay her $1 million to keep the business. Number 2 is Joe Williams, his partner, comes in and says, "Gary, the market's really tanking and I need to preserve my investments. I need you to buy me out." And of course, since they were #1 in the market, the evaluation of the business was higher probably than it should have been. So Gary had to enter into another big agreement to pay money. So he was multiple millions of dollars in debt. In a market, and then let me tell you this, because I moved there right at that time, that market dove worse than it did in 2007, 2008. The real estate board dropped by 2/3 of the agents dropped out of the business. The average sale price dropped 30, 35%, which was unheard of anywhere at that time. And then guess what happened on top of all that? 6 of his top people left him to go to RE/MAX. Now, Gary had a lot of choices, like we all do when you deal with stress. He could have closed up shop, said, "You know what? I wasn't meant for this business. I think I should go do something else, take my talent somewhere else." Or he could have gotten angry and started suing RE/MAX and all that for taking his agents and tried to do something aggressive. But he didn't. He stayed incredibly calm. He sat down with his remaining top 12 people and he asked them this question: what would we need to do to invent a real estate company that no one would ever need to leave? And they did it. They built Keller Williams, the new revised Keller Williams, with a cap system, which nobody had, with profit sharing, with open books, with an ALC, with the Y4C2Ts, with training and support and marketing, because they always loved Gary as a trainer. And they said, so they had an economic system that worked. They had training that worked. They had marketing, and they had involvement as agents in it, as Gary said. My agents are my partners in the business. So what happened? Well, they became #1 in the city. And then they decided to become a franchise system. So he spent lots of money to do the franchising right. And I could give you the inside story on why he did it so brilliantly, because I was very familiar with franchise agreements. His is the best in the world. And so then what happened? Well, 5 years later, Keller Williams is losing money, and only probably 5 of its 30 offices are profitable, and it says it's a profit sharing company. And so Gary also says to you, this is another lesson for all of us. He said, "I believe in accountability. I believe we succeed through coaches who hold us accountable." And his coach at the time, Bain Henyon, said, "Gary, you need leverage. I know you're trying to do it all yourself. I know you're trying to save money, but you need leverage. You need a CEO that can implement your brilliant systems. She needs to get a training capability on board, And so he hired Mo Anderson, paid money he didn't have. They were all losing. He was losing money. He was funding it through his local office. And Mo hired me. And then we had this trio of power that could take these systems and implement them. Now, I'm not going to take time. This is what I did for 12 years when I taught franchise systems orientation, but I'm just looking at you. Keller Williams is built on these models. That's why no other real estate company can come close to us. Our economic model is the best one. Agents with us keep 81 to 88% on average, market center to market center, of the commission. 81 to 88%. Keller Williams only gets paid less than 3% of all that money goes to be part of Keller Williams. On average, understand, because it gets capped, as we all know. And it's still our offices, because we give them big territories and the chance to have lots of agents so that they can still be profitable with a low margin. We call it high volume, low margin. It's our business model. And then we profit share 160 million a year, over 1.3 billion. That's just unheard of. Amazing. Okay. Number two is we understand the real estate sales business game. We understand it from Ignite, started all the way up to MREA and MAPS, and all the way up to now expansion. So we understand the model. We're committed to it. No other real estate company. Most of them are run by Wall Street executive types, MBAs, not people who have come out of the real estate business. Keller Williams is run by people who've come out of the real estate business, of course, including Gary. We share our leadership through our ALCs, through our international ALC. We know how to build leadership. We have a recruiting model that's built on what? Relationships, not recruiting, not presentations, not marketing. It's built because we know the reason people join is because they have relationships. And so we reward our agents by using their relationships to have people come. I mean, that's one of the strange things that friends of mine don't understand. I said, here's Keller Williams, probably the most respected name in the real estate business and the largest by far. And it's never spent a nickel on brand marketing. Never spent a nickel on brand marketing. We don't market Keller Williams. Our agents market themselves, and they happen to be powered by Keller Williams. And so we get it. I mean, I remember Gary saying to me when I came from Century 21, 12 years of being an executive with them, he said, Dave, you're going to have to leave a lot of that stuff behind. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, you believe that the brand is a big deal because Century 21 says everyone knows that Century 21's in real estate. And he said, but I know that's not true. And I said, Gary, I know it's not true. He said, here's what I believe. And I want you to remember this. Brand leads to recognition. So brand marketing leads to recognition. Reputation leads to choice. So people are going to choose you not because of your marketing, but because of your reputation. And that's what our agents build, their reputation. So I just say that because that's what we're built on, relationships. And then finally, we're a learning-based company. It's interesting. I worked on a doctorate in educational psychology, and the one page we put about being learning-based in the 6 personal perspectives, there's more wisdom about adult education on that one page than anything I've ever seen anywhere. It's brilliant. It's amazing. So we believe in adult-based learning. We know how to do it. We deliver it at all levels. We deliver it every which way there is, including through a great faculty, a great master faculty. Number 6, here's a secret one. We understand accountability, just like Gary said. He let someone, here it was his company, he let someone else tell him what he needed to do. He said, get a consultant, get the best you can find, pay them what they charge, don't negotiate it. And he said, 3, do what they say. Big deal. And that's why we have all the power that we have through MAPS and all the coaching that we believe in this company. So accountability is big. We obviously have a great cultural model. It's a double-sided one, by the way. A lot of people misunderstand it. They think of the Y4C2Ts, the huggy kissy, the feel good, but we have that. That's our rules of engagement. But the other side of that is the achievement focused base. That's the 6 personal perspectives. We're an achievement company. We're a transaction company. The money does matter, and getting results matters, and being a high achiever matters. It's not just feel good; it's do good. And so we're a double-powered model of culture. And then the final thing is, of course, we're committed to technology. It's funny that that's become such a late game, and Gary even says we're a technology company. We always used to say we were a training and consulting company, cleverly disguised as a real estate franchise system. And we knew we were trainers and consultants, and our agents did the real estate, not us. We needed to support them in doing the work. But now we say we're a technology company. What that means is that we're using technology to power our agents, not to take them out, but to power them. And we're making it consumer focused also. So it's important to understand, and people say, well, is this a new thing for Keller Williams? And I say, no. Keller Williams has always been tech. We have kw.com. How early did you have to be in the internet game to get a 2-letter domain name? And we got it right away. And the other thing was, I said, everything we've always transmitted in the company has been done digitally. Now, we had to do FTP files and things like that originally, and bulletin boards before the advent of email and all the internet stuff that we have now, but we did it. And the other thing is, I want you to remember this concept, and that is called homesbyauction.com. Gary Keller thought in 1999 that the real estate industry might move like it has to Australia to doing auctions. And the agents kind of got taken out of that in Australia. So we put a lot of research in, and we built homesbyauction.com. And it's a system whereby sellers needed to be represented by an agent, and so did buyers. And we would get it ready where they could actually do an auction and hit the buy button and take it. Not easy to do. So we did that. And then we test marketed it, and we found out that the consumers weren't ready for it, and the agents weren't interested in it either. And so we put it on the shelf. But if ever the industry went to auctioning, we got it. We've done it, done the work. So I really say that because I want you to have confidence in the vision that Gary Keller has for this company of always putting the agent in the center and giving them the support they need to do it. Now, we talked about models. The 2 models, we've got the cultural models, the Y4C2Ts, which you ought to know. You ought to know those. By the way, those are a listing presentation. I'm not going to do it for you right now, but I can role play a listing presentation built purely on the Y4C2Ts. That's powerful and would make somebody want to list with me. The second one is the 6 personal perspectives. And Gary asked great questions. So he asked me this question as we were building Keller Williams University in the early part of 1997. He said, Dave, we've both worked with high achievers. And how do you think they think differently from other people? And I said, well, I don't know. Let's think about it. I mean, they do. And we knew, positive mental attitude and all that. But what we really came down to was 6 personal perspectives. And they're very deep and they're very important. And so one of the things I would do during this time is take a look through those 6 personal perspectives and say, how does this impact me? Am I good at self-mastery? Am I focusing with the 80-20? Am I learning based? Am I removing my limiting beliefs? Am I using the power of accountability? Am I moving from E to P? Those are important questions. And then, of course, models just led us right through. That's why we put it at the beginning of MREA of the 3 L's, the economic model, lead generation model, budget model, and organizational model. Now, what I've done for everybody here is I've taken both of those books, and I would highly recommend that what you do is that you have these books coil bound, so they lay flat, sitting on the front of your desk next to each other. And if you work with investors or care about wealth building, then MREI is there too, coil bound. And you put them in front of you because that's the dashboard of your business and the dashboard of your future. Now, the neat thing about MREA is that it has a very in-depth table of contents. That was one of my contributions to it. I said, look, I love tables of contents because it tells me what's in the book. So the 4-page table of contents is the dashboard of that book, but I've detailed more of the other things that are there, and you can see it's got the page number and where they are. I would just tell you that the 9 ways the MREA thinks is a great one to review. And review it from the bottom up, from service and standards on up to big why. Because sometimes we start with a big why and don't understand. No, the real commitment, the way they think, is they think service, then they think standards, then they think competition and strategy, and work your way up. But use that. It's a great reminder. And then the other thing I would say is page 133 to 147 will tell you everything you need to know about marketing and lead generation. Everything you need to know strategically. It talks about the database, talks about all the different ways, it talks about the inner circles, it talks about building mind share, powerful. And then the other place I take you is page 196 to 203, which is the whole path to leverage. How to go from a single producing agent to the 7th level where you own a business that has everyone else doing something and you just take the mailbox money. I mean, you still have a role as the owner, and we talk about that in there, but that path to leverage, those pages right there, it also has in there some of the warnings of things we've seen people do. So that's one thing, and I give this to you, as a guide. The other that I want to share with you right now is that there is not a similar table of contents at the front of Shift. One thing I want everyone to understand is that Shift really was the second version of MREA. And the reason I say that is we figured that after we wrote a classic book like MREA, that we'd need to do a revised edition maybe every 5 years. That often happens with great books. But we got to the end of the 5 years and we looked and we said, well, there's nothing we change in there. I mean, that's timeless truth. It's all good. But the one thing we left out was the techniques, the sales techniques, because underneath real estate is a whole bunch of things that you master doing, right? You master finding the motivated. That's the whole lead generation. You master converting leads into appointments. You master making effective listing presentations and getting them to price right and stage it right. You master working with buyers to show homes efficiently so you're not seeing another 30, 40 homes and they're making decisions and you're helping them make good decisions. And then, of course, you're troubleshooting the transaction. You're bulletproofing it, as we say. You take it from there to closing, from listing to contract to closing, and that's a set of systems. So that book, Shift, is really the fundamental sales techniques of real estate, with all the scripts and dialogues and the way you describe things. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, just because a home is on the market doesn't mean it's in the market. My job is to make sure your home is not only on the market, but in the market. Homes that are in the market sell, get multiple offers. Homes that are on the market, overpriced, don't look very good, they'll sit there. They don't get any showings. So I'm going to make sure, not that your house is on the market, but that it's in the market. Well, that whole description's right there, along with charts and things you can see. So it's brilliant. It's really brilliant about selling. Now, the thing that's interesting is the first 3 chapters are just about dealing with a shift. And they were dealing with that downturn that happened in 2000. We saw it in 2006, starting 2007, 2008, where it shifted from a strong seller's market to a really way over buyer's market and hurt a lot of places, including the office I opened with Debbie Zoyce in Las Vegas in 2006. And then Vegas was one of the worst hit ever, but we stayed healthy and profitable the whole way through it. Why? Because we know how to deal with the shift. So those chapters, the first 3 chapters, are about dealing with the shift, and particularly if you have a team of people, you want to revisit those. It tells you how to remargin your business, how to top grade your people and upgrade your systems. All that's there, right? So I say this to you because all of this is a great guide for you about your education and your training, and particularly for those of you that are new in the business. You can read MREA to get the big picture, but you want to master Shift to get the technical hands-on wisdom about what you're going to do. Now, the final thing I want to do in my little portion of our time here together is to talk with you about attitude, because see, the thing is, when Gary Keller and I started working together and we started doing, building the 6 personal perspectives, Gary said, Dave, I come from a long line of lethargic people. And I laughed at that. He said, so I have to build into my life a whole bunch of systems and structures that keep me active. Because my tendency would be to go, like my dad did, sack out in the garage in front of the TV in my big soft chair, smoking a pipe. And he said, that's not the kind of life I want to lead. So you can see, particularly the one he and Jay wrote on, the one thing, which is the second personal perspective, right? Focus with the 2080, that he's got focus in his life, and he's got structure, and he's got systems, and he's got accountability, because that keeps him active and going. Now, I said to him at the same time, I said, Gary, I come from a long line of depressed people. I said, my grandfather spent the last 20 years in the nursing home, virtually catatonic. My dad had serious mood swings and anger management issues. And once I got to 30, I started dealing with cyclical depression. In fact, I almost committed suicide in my 30s. And I got so desperate. And I had to recover from alcoholism later, because I started using alcohol to mitigate my mind. And so I've been through this time. And so I want to tell you that I have really been a student of cognitive psychology, of positive psychology, and how the way we think changes the way we feel, and the way we feel changes the way we act. And I just want to share with you, I had a wonderful chance at family reunion to do a session called Light My Fire. And I had been doing it at several market centers, and it's called The Power of Self-Mastery. So it's the personal perspective, number one. That's the one that I care the most about, how to get self-mastery. And in it, amongst other things, I shared a little paradigm, which is on the screen in front of you, called FIRE. Light my fire. And it stands for freedom, intention, resilience, and enthusiasm. And, we use acronyms in Keller Williams because they make things memorable. And, so I hope this one does. Here's what I mean. In freedom, I mean, it goes from Og Mandino's book, The Greatest Miracle in the World. And in it, he meets a guy in a bad time of his life, Og's life. He meets Simon Potter, and they have a great winter together, and his attitude changes. But in the spring, Simon Potter disappears. But on his table, Og finds this memo, and it says, and I'll give you the short form, memo from God. And it's written this way: I have created life to be abundant if you will do 4 things. Number 1, count your blessings. Wow, have an attitude of gratitude. Number 2, affirm your unique abilities and talents. In other words, look at yourself and affirm what makes you unique and different from other people, right? You don't have to be the same as everybody else. Use your strengths, bridge your weaknesses. And then the third one was use your God-given power to choose. Just make decisions. Go for something. Set a goal. Go for it. No one else has to approve that. No one else has to say that's okay. You get to do that. You have the freedom to choose. So those are the first 3. The fourth one really fits under the R, and it's go another mile. It's not go the extra mile. That's the hype side of it. No, it's just go another mile. In other words, hang in there. Just keep trucking. Just keep moving. Just keep calling people, right? Just keep studying your trade. Just keep at it. So freedom, live in gratitude. I is intention. That's all about knowing what you want, why you want it, your motivation, how you're going to get it, and when you're going to do it. Gary said, if something doesn't hit your calendar, that's why time blocking is so important. If something doesn't hit your calendar, you really haven't committed to it, right? So intention, be on purpose. And all leaders are intentional. It's the second rule of the 7 habits of highly effective people. Begin with the end in mind. What are we doing here, right? And then R is resilience. And to me, this is, life is tough. There's a wonderful book written by M. Scott Peck called The Road Less Traveled. And the first sentence of it is, life is difficult. And the second sentence is, and if you realize that, it'll get easier. Meaning, don't fool yourself. Life is tough, right? The Buddhists say life is suffering. And we're dealing right now with suffering. Sure, the death of a virus, but the shutdown of an economy and all the stuff that goes on around this. Who could have predicted it? But but we will all face those times in our life, I promise you, and I'm going to read a little thing later that summarizes it for me. But one of the things we get to do is build our resilience, build our tough-mindedness, build the power of our self-talk. I had one agent out of Utah who said, I always want to be the calmest person in the transaction. If you can keep your head while all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. Those are the first lines of that wonderful poem by Rudyard Kipling, If, which I have on my wall. I love that poem. So it's all about that self-reliance. And the other thing I would just say, there's a little formula I use called MELT, M-E-L-T. And I say, melt away the stress, if you're dealing with stress. M stands for meditate. I've been meditating since I learned it from the organization of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who the Beatles went to learn meditation. I learned that way back then. And I can relax myself in an instant by using that mantra and relaxing. But I also find through my wife, who works with people in deep theta level meditation, that what happens with you in meditation is you don't just relax physically. That's the fundamental thing that's neat. But if you stay in meditation for 15 or 20 minutes, you can get down to what they call theta level relaxation, which is where creativity happens, where insight and ingenuity comes from. So you come out of that kind of meditation session with insight, power, and energy that you didn't have before. So meditation's a big one. E, exercise, of course. You know, one of the neat things we did was just accidentally 2 months ago bought a Peloton. bike. Now that my fitness center's all closed and everything, I get to still work out on my Peloton. And they, by the way, have mastered the art of how to do a motivational workout session. I mean, they have mastered it. They're trainers, and the way they do it with music and all that stuff is just, I mean, it really makes you work harder in that workout than you would have worked on your own. So exercise. Oh, go for a walk. To me, the best thing to do when you're feeling down is go for a walk. And the L is laugh. In other words, tell a joke. Listen to a joke. Listen to Jim Gaffigan on YouTube, or somebody funny, a comedian you like. Laugh at yourself. Laugh at the circumstances. Laughter is so great. And the final one is train. And this is the one I learned from Gary Keller. I mean, Gary Keller handles massive stress. I've never seen him in a situation where he loses his cool. And he's always focused on what matters. He goes to family reunion. Here we are. And he did this last year after he stepped in as CEO. And he goes to maybe 18, 19, 20 events during that. And some of it is the big events like the vision speech. And some of it is meeting with top agents. And some of it is meeting with OPs. And some of it is with, RDs. And every meeting he goes to, people expect him to stand up and make a difference. Say something important, say something that motivates us or clarifies things for us, answer our toughest questions. He moves from one to the other of those meetings with just the calmest nature and the most insightful energy that you can imagine. Well, he's trained. So training, learn how to train. See, I don't know if any of you have seen the movie by Alex Honnold called Free Solo. This guy who climbs the face of El Capitan in Yosemite, almost 3,000 feet of pure granite with little handholds and footholds, and he does it without any safety equipment, no ropes, no pitons, no anything, just his hands and some chalk and his shoes. And it's astounding. And what you learn in watching that movie is the way he can do that is two ways: preparation. His preparation was amazing. He knew every little foothold on that whole climb. And the other is calmness. He's learned to stay calm in the most life-threatening time. So that's the thing. I think we build our resilience. And the final one is enthusiasm, which I think is the God-given energy that we have. It's what kids have. When they have a natural enthusiasm, a natural curiosity, a natural want to know, a natural want to do, learn how to do things, all that stuff. And we need to go back to that, right? It's called, enthusiasm comes from the Greek entheos, the God within. And I believe it's the spiritual path that we're on. I'm on a very deep spiritual path. In fact, I posted a podcast last night called The 7 Incarnations of God, which is the 21st chapter of my book, Seeker, my memoirs, Seeker, A Journey Toward Wisdom. And toward the end of it, of course, I'm dealing with spiritual issues. And I've really looked at this, and the 7 Incarnations of God is an interesting look at the combination of science and spirituality. But the point is, I pray every day. And I think that tying in to that God consciousness gives us a wisdom and a staying power we wouldn't otherwise have. So fire, freedom, intention, resilience, enthusiasm, live in gratitude, be on purpose, stay calm, and may the force be with you. One final thing. And I was asked by Wayne Solomons to write the foreword to his book, The Art of Getting Back Up. And this is the last 3 paragraphs of that, and I want to share it with you. By the way, for those of you who are listening in on this, I have 4 items I will send you if you send me an email, dave@kw.com. And I don't want anyone in the leadership to just give this out to people. Okay, I want people to earn this. This is very important. There are things in life that are giveaways, and there are things in life you earn. So these little things I want to share, I want you to earn them. And here's how you earn them. You send an email to dave@kw.com, and you tell me what you got out of this seminar. Tell me why this was important or what you valued in this time that we've just spent together. Just highlight that for me if you would. Then I will send you this forward. I'll send you the fire logo, the fire picture. I will send you all my slides from the power, Light My Fire, the Power of Self-Mastery from Family Reunion. And I will send you my top 10 books on dealing with adversity. Okay, so if you send me that email, dave@kw.com, tell me what you got out of this, and I'll send that. Here we go, finish it up. Here's the thing I know, this is perspective. This is just life perspective. To me, it's a cut it reality. Now, this was long before we're dealing. This was a year and a half ago. I wrote the foreword to this book, but I think it's relevant. And here's where it goes. Here's what I know. All high achievers will deal with failure. In fact, Gary Keller says, you fail your way to success. They will deal with doubt, discouragement, and even depression. They'll feel fear and weakness. They'll lose friends they thought were forever. They'll feel judgment they don't deserve. Their hopes and dreams will get cloudy and unsure, and they'll want to stop working so hard, trying so hard. They'll want to avoid the pain. Now, here's what I also know. This is the path of the free enterprise warrior, the independent contractor. This is the story of the entrepreneur. This is the burden of heroic leaders. It just comes with the territory. I mean, it's part of the game. It's the challenge you must endure. And here's the reward. Beyond the darkness is light. Beyond the pain is joy. Beyond the burden is contribution. Beyond the doubt is meaning. So I say, bring it on. Get ready. Prepare for it. Absorb the wisdom of the art of getting back up. Learn the steps and master the skills. Feel the power, the resilience, and the tenacity. Bring that confidence to your work, to your venture, to your family, to your purpose. Know that you will certainly get knocked down, but you will never stay down. You have the unstoppable power of persistence. You embrace the optimism and challenge of always getting back up. And there we go.
That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. I think I went on a little long. I apologize for that.
No, you were great.
You go perfect minutes, and once you get Dave talking, it's hard to stop him.
Well, we would never dare stop you. We'd love for you to talk all day long. We appreciate that, Dave. Those are all.
Thank you. Thank you for being there.
A lot of great nuggets, and you know, I was putting pen to paper, trying to come up with some, you know, really important questions to ask you. I don't pretend that these are the penultimate questions to ask you. So if anybody else has some questions, by all means, include them in the chat, and let's make sure that we ask them of Dave. First of all, Dave, just tell us, like, how did you find real estate?
Well, it's interesting. That was a big accident. I had several careers beforehand. I was in the world of education, higher education. I had a chance to become the director of sales and marketing for a graphic arts company, and I had never done sales and marketing. And so a friend of mine said, hey, you ought to take the Dale Carnegie Institute has a course in selling. So I went and took the Dale Carnegie sales course, and oh my God, it changed my view of what selling really is. See, I just thought if you couldn't do anything else, you became a salesman, right? That was that kind of uppity, elitist, you know, academic view. And I realized, no, it's a set of skills and understandings that most people do not understand and are not easy to develop. So I became an instructor with them. And then as I was teaching the Dale Carnegie sales course, one of my students owned a Century 21 office, and he had taken the course once, and then he came back to be a graduate assistant with me twice, and we became good friends. And I was working at the time also on my doctorate in educational psychology, and he said, so Dave, what are you going to do after you get your doctorate? And I said, well, I'm looking to have a job, a leadership role in a company that teaches people leadership and selling. And he said, we got those in Century 21. I ought to put you in touch. And so he put me in touch with their regional director. And a month later, I was on board as a district manager for Century 21. So it's interesting. I didn't come into it out of being a real estate salesman. I came out of it being a management consultant and a sales trainer. Now, I learned the industry really fast because I'm a quick study, and I talk with people. So I talk with my best agents, and you know, I learned from them what they do to be successful, and they answered all my curiosity questions. And then I became, you know, a trainer in real estate. And then I became a director of training, and then became a regional director for 3 states up in the Northeast, based out of New York. And then they asked me in 1988 to come to Texas, where Century 21 was losing market share like mad, and to turn it around down there. We combined 2 regions, one that was out of Houston, one that was out of Dallas, into one. And I got to be the regional director, and then eventually became a divisional president. So that's how I got in the real estate game.
Love it. And then, so when did the KW opportunity present itself?
Well, that's an interesting one because of how it happened. So I just want to say, people, sometimes you don't know what you're doing when you're writing down goals. Now, in 1982, I became a real fan of goal setting because I wrote down that I wanted to be regional director. And at that time, I was a lowly district manager. And 3 years later, I became regional director. I'm like, whoo, this goal setting thing really works. So I think when you write down your goals, it makes a big difference. And when you put down the path to get there, it makes even a bigger difference. And Gary Keller would say the third difference that makes the most is you have someone hold you accountable. So in 1992, as divisional president of Century 21, I was writing my goals. And here's the goal I wrote down. It's really funny. I wrote it this way. I said, I want to be a key leader in the real estate company that takes the industry into the new millennium. This was in 92. Now, isn't it funny? I wrote it that way. I didn't put Century 21, even though a bunch of people told me I was going to be the next president of Century 21. That's what they were telling me. So the funny thing was I didn't write that down. And of course, I did get to be a leader in the company that took the real estate industry in the new millennium. It just happened to be Keller Williams. So here's the thing. In 1993, my number one owner of Century 21 in Dallas came to me and said, Dave, I'm not going to renew my franchise. Nope, I'm leaving Century 21. I said, Marcy, you've been here 15 years. I mean, this is a great company. Why wouldn't you stay here? What are you going to do? She said, I'm going Keller Williams. I said, that little pyramid company down in Austin, you know? And she said, no, I learned more from an afternoon with Gary Keller about real estate and the future of real estate than I've ever learned in Century 21. So here's what I said, well, what would it take to keep you with Century 21? And we negotiated a deal. She wanted to expand. And so I did this thing where we co-ventured her expansion. It was a brilliant business move. I promise you, it was one of the most brilliant business things I ever did. But and so we renewed her franchise and she, you know, all that stuff, opened up her second office. And when the auditors came in, they said, what's this thing where you've shared some money with this broker to co-venture their opening? And I went, oh yeah, it's a neat plan. They said, well, you know, this is really out of the ordinary. We're going to have to report this to Century 21 headquarters. And I went, of course you are. I'm not trying to hide it. I got legal counsel doing it, all that stuff. Well, anyway, they called me in on the carpet and fired me because I stopped my number one ownership from going to Keller Williams.
Wow.
Isn't that funny? Then I got a call from Mo Anderson, and she wasn't president yet. And she said, Dave, this is great. Now you can be with Keller Williams. And when she became president, and she called me and said, you're going to be my first hire. You're coming on board because you know franchising like nobody I know. And she said, your brokers all respected you, and I love that you know that, and I don't know how to do that, and we're struggling with that, so please come on board. And so in 96, she brought me on board.
Wow. Well, and I want to talk about MREA because, you know, I personally, and this isn't about me, but 2008, when I got into the business with my wife, Leslie, that book was given to us like it was so many other people.
Yeah. And
I think, you know, for a lot of folks, we read a little bit of it and then we say that doesn't apply to us. That's somebody else. That's unachievable, right? Those are just for the big producers within real estate. And what I'm grateful for is that, you know, the leadership within our company, particularly our assistant team leaders and our productivity coaches,
yes,
stayed on us and said, no, really, like, pick it back up, read it, do it. And, you know, we followed that. In 3 years, that book actually created an MREA team for us.
Wonderful.
And it was, I just can't tell you what a gift that book has been for me personally. And of course, it's changed the trajectory of my life. So thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome, man. You're welcome. And I love the way that you understand how it works, because that was the dilemma. That's one of the reasons we said it's not about the money, right? It's about being the best you can be. But because we knew we were sort of setting this big vision of what was possible. You could be a 7th level agent with a fully operating team, you know, with maybe netting $1 million, all that stuff. But as you said, when you start in as a solopreneur, as an independent contractor, you don't have any sense that that's even possible. So what we wanted to get in people's mind was you can think bigger, right? That's the idea. Think bigger, but you start where you are, which is build your database, build your relationships, Here's the way you lead generate. That's first, the first L, master the first L, then do it with listings, and then ultimately sometimes leverage. Because what we knew that agents weren't getting in the companies they were almost all with was the broker wanted them to stay dependent as a solo self-employed person, right, with a job. The minute the idea of they start to build a company within the company, oh my God, the owner starts
Panic.
Panic. They start to feel threatened, which they should, because unless you're built like Keller Williams, where we endorse that and give you high fives and say, go build it as big as you want here, including through expansion, which is amazing. But then what you did, thank you, you went in and you mastered the fundamentals, right? And you understood, for example, in the leverage side, and people really forget this, the first two steps of leverage are about your personal productivity. It's not about building a team. It's about having an admin and then a transaction person so that you can do more business. One of the things I interviewed Mike Mendoza, who's in the back of the book, out of Ahwatukee, Arizona. Yeah. And at the time I said, how do you manage your business? And he said, well, David, he says, I know you guys, I've been going to masterminds. I know what you and Gary say, but he said, I do it a little differently. He said, I have these affiliate agents with me. I support them. I encourage them. But he said, mostly that part of their commission I get just pays for my admin. And then he said, it's really, then that gives me the power to go keep all the money I make. And I said, well, that's cool, Mike. I said, how many listings did you take last year? And he went, 172. I said, how many sold? He said, 165. Okay. Did you work with any buyers? Oh yeah, I work with buyers all the time. Really? How many buyers did you put under contract? 51. What? So he did 220 transactions by himself. One person. And I said, you must be working all the time. He said, no, it's not like going to a coal mine. He said, I play golf. I hang out in the community. I play with my kids. I go to my kids' basketball games and all this stuff. He said, no, it's just, so here's the thing. The very first step, and I'd say this to anyone who's listening here, the first step to team building is your productivity. Now, once you get that high enough and you have enough leads that you really could have other people doing the time-consuming work of showing homes, okay, then bring on a showing assistant. But step your way into this. I would just say the one mistake I've seen agents make is they really are building a brokerage within the brokerage. They have 20, 30 agents that are willy-nilly, do what they want, do it when they want. And they're undermining their own reputation. They're increasing their aggravation, and they're not building any kind of a bottom line. So I don't know why you would do it that way. It's not what we teach in the book.
Yeah. Leslie and I, my wife, we teach a lot of MREA concepts, and sometimes the first leverage piece is a nanny or a yard guy or a pool guy, right?
No, that's right. No, somebody who's taking care of your landscaping, somebody who's giving you free time. Exactly.
Yeah, that's part of your own personal productivity as well.
First step of leverage is personal. Yeah.
So how did you co-author this book with 3 people? Like, I'm just curious, if you went inside of the writing room when you guys are doing this, how did you figure out, okay, you do this, I do this, you do that? Like, how did all that go?
Well, I tell you what, first, it's this power of synergy. You start with that, right? So if you have, it's what we say in the back end of MREA, and that is teamwork, rock and roll, right? If you know the big rock and everyone knows their role, then you can have a powerful team. Well, what we found was that, of course, we evolved into this. So the first thing to understand is that Gary challenges us at the beginning of 2002. And we've just gone through 9/11. And by the way, there's an interesting thing about adversity, Andy, that we had mega camp scheduled for 9/12, the day after. And we held it. We held it anyway, and about half the number of people who'd registered were able to show, but they were already in town. So, and the skies were shut down. So we held that. And then a month later, we held it again. And of course, things had opened up by then, and the other half came, plus some people came again. So the point was that wasn't going to stop us. But 6 months later, and we're all in the midst of, before we're building up to do, Operation Iraqi Freedom and all the kind of war we went to in Iraq, but all that tension is going on and the market isn't doing very well. Gary Keller says to us in a meeting in the beginning of 2002, he said, we're growing pretty good. Most other like Remax, we're about matching their growth curve where they were 10 years ago. He said, do we just want to match them or do we want to make history? What a great question. Well, of course, you ask a bunch of achievers, do you want to make history? we're going to make history. So in 2 days, we came up with 100 ideas of how we could increase our growth dramatically. And then Gary, focus guy, he said, okay, we can only do 5. So commit to 5. And once we had that discussion, number 1 was write the book. And what we knew was that if we wrote the book that positioned us as the most knowledgeable people in real estate, that we would have the credibility that would attract people to us. Now, we virtually never mention Keller Williams in the book. I mean, we do it on where the current authors work, and only 3 of the 24 agents we highlighted in the back were with us at the time. And so it really wasn't a promo Keller Williams book. It was a gift to the industry. And Gary and I had been working for 6 years with our masterminds and all of that about helping agents turn their self-employed job into a real business. And we had done the path to the 7th level. We did do you have the 172 tasks and functions wall chart anywhere?
Yeah. Yep.
We built that, we built that to show exactly how it looked and all these kind of details and systems. And I say that, and we used to have a little book we give out at Mega Camp every year, and it was called the wonderful real estate sales business game, or the remarkable, that was it, the remarkable real estate sales business game. And it kept getting thicker. Every year that book got thicker with models and systems and all that. And basically, when we said we're going to write the book, that was the book. I mean, we had already put it together, but it wasn't a book, but it was all the systems and tools and the fundamental truths, right? So then at the same time, a young man had signed on with our technology department to be a tech writer. His name was Jay Papasan. And Gary met him in the men's room one day and said, so what's your background, Jay? And Jay told he was with this big publishing firm up in New York. And Gary said, well, I got good news and bad news. He said, the good news is we've got you, but the bad news is our tech department just lost a course writer.
Yeah.
So, no, it's a great story because then Jay, so here's the thing. The first book was Gary and me, with Jay acting like an editor, do you know what I mean? To make our words smoother and better and paragraphs and, but we worked as a team. And then at that time, Gary and I would split up and say, Dave, why don't you write a chapter on this? And then he would write on this. And then we'd come together. But the more we worked together, the 3 of us, and of course this happened with MREI, which was the second book, and then Shift for sure, and then Your First Home. We really began to be this amazingly synergistic team where we would work together at the same time. And every once in a while, someone would go off to the side and draft something. Like when we did Shift, because we were trying to move it so fast to get it out, we each took sections and did the first cut of the section. And then we'd bring it back to the team. But the team, we always said we left so much on the editing room floor, right? I mean, how many things we thought were cute that got cut out. And so he said, don't fall in love with your darlings, because it's probably going to get cut. But the point was that's what you're asking, which I think is important, is when you get the idea of what you want to create, the synergy is just wonderful. Now, I would say in the process, Jay's the most astute vocabulary writer guy. I'm the most creative, think out of the box guy. And Gary was the most driver for excellence. I mean, it had to pass Gary's test. And there were things we wrote that we thought were really good, but they didn't pass the Gary test because he has this thing about whether something is good enough or not. And good enough is not good enough for him, right? Excellence is the only thing that he lives for. And he was tough with that. So he was probably the most, the most driver of the quality of how it turned out, although we all contributed.
I'd expect nothing less from Gary.
Of course.
Yeah, that MREI book, I've always said the first story, the conversation between him and John at the beginning of it, to me, that is the closest thing to being in a mastermind with Gary. Like in all my experiences that I've been fortunate enough to be in the room with Gary, that resembles it. So if anybody ever wonders what that's like, just read the beginning of MREI.
Well, yeah. But I'll take you to another place. And I don't know, I just actually discovered this the other day. It's interesting. But in 2010, probably 2011, Gary rewrote the introduction to Shift.
Hmm.
to, I think, give it a bigger perspective, because we were coming out of the shift and he didn't want it to lose its relevance. So he wrote a new 16-page foreword. That's what it says, the foreword to the book. Go read that. And if you have the old book, you may not have it. If you may not have it. I didn't have it until I looked at my book, my latest version, and there it was. And I went, wow, I don't remember Gary writing this, because he didn't when I was there. And I reread it and I went, oh my God, that's probably as good as 16 pages on high achievement as you will ever read. And like you said, and in there, he tells a story about talking with John about doing his homework. Right. And it's just like you say, that's how he would be in a mastermind.
Yeah. So shift is obviously the topic of everybody's conversation right now. Do you track book sales? I mean, can you see
I
in
don't.
the last
I mean,
30 days?
Jay would be able to tell you. You know, what
Yeah.
I know is on Amazon that for 15 years, MREA has been the #1 selling book in the real estate category week after week. Right. Some may bump it one week, but it's just there all the time. I haven't looked recently to see if shift has come up. I'm sure it has.
I bet it has.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll have to check that out.
So knowing what you know today about, all these years of experience and, seeing MREA lived out,
Yes.
you got all the data, you wrote the book, and then you had people that followed the book. So you had this net kind of taking it to the next level.
Didn't.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's really funny because we so many people got enamored with this idea of the 7th level. Oh my God, I could have a real estate business where I don't have to work anymore. That's not the right motive.
Yeah.
It's not the right motive. Yeah.
And I've learned from Gary too that if you're gonna 7th level and like completely remove yourself, you might as well sell. Because
I don't. Well, it depends on what you mean by completely remove. I think he's right. If you're going to completely remove, you might as well. But see, I remember talking with a guy by the name of Jim Droz. I don't know. You probably don't know him, but he was the #1 agent in all of Century 21 for 3 years when I was there out of Santa Clarita, California. Great story. An Appalachian, Kentucky, barefoot hillbilly boy who became #1 real estate agent in all of Century 21, 7,000 offices. It was amazing. And I got to know him and meet with him. And, it was interesting when he said, I'm going to work for 10 years and then I'm going to go buy a ranch in Northern California and be there with my kids when they're still teenagers. And he actually did that. But when he left his business, he sold it. He sold his database for $90,000. And he thought that was a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, but your business was making you $700,000 a year net. All you had to do is replace yourself with a couple of people, and it still could have netted you $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 for as long as you wanted, right? So to me, the smartest play for an agent is because they've built it under their name and their brand and their key people, is stay in business. Replace some of your income with the person who you're going to reward to lead it and maybe even grow it. And then, and this is what we say in the back of the book, you do 3 things as an owner. You bring vision. You never leave the vision. The vision and the standards, here's what we stand for. When people do business with us, this is what they get, right? Second, you manage the money. You hold money accountable. You check in the financials every month. And the third thing you do is bring accountability. And that is you hold people accountable to what they say they're going to do. If you do those 3 things, and they don't have to take, Linda McKissick, who went 7th level in 8 years, amazing. And I asked her after 2 years after she'd gone 7th level, how much time do you spend in the business? She said, 4 or 5 hours a week. Well, in 4 or 5 hours a week, you can do those 3 things I just said.
You just described the job description for an OP.
Well, no, that's right.
On the Market Center side.
You know what? That's what, and by the way, it's funny how our models work. As we started even getting better at training OPs and ownerships, we said, these are the 3 things. Actually, you know what? I think it worked the other way around, Andy. I think that we knew that's how we were training OPs. And then we said, okay, let's apply that to agents in MREA. Yeah, we did it that way.
Makes sense. So tell us your best Gary Keller story.
Well, there's a couple of them. And, one is just his automatic way of how he lifts a room. I remember here I'd been a trainer with Dale Carnegie and all that stuff. and I was helping build Keller Williams University. And we gathered together the first meeting ever of 12 people we had hand selected across Keller Williams to be our initial faculty, the Keller Williams University master faculty, Dick Dillingham and Susan Ubeck and Gene Rivers and all, these people that are still icons, they were there plus some others that were could have still been there, but then they took other ventures. So the point was, though, we brought them together. And so I was trying to tell them about how this was going to work and what the roles would be and how the things would be. And I was kind of doing, this executive administrative presentation. And Gary says, hey, Dave, I want to say a couple things. And man, he took that room up 5 notches on the role of the university and what it meant for them and how the difference they'd be making in people's lives and how much that was a part of our value proposition and the work it would take for them to deliver the courses the way we wanted them delivered, not just the way they would. I tell you what, accountability, but he just took the thinking to a higher level. And I find every meeting you go to where Gary steps in, he just takes the thinking to a higher level. That's just what I find.
Oh yeah, no doubt about that. So,
by the way, there's one other Gary Keller story. It's about focus.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. It's about focus, which just simply is this. When we would be in a writing meeting, somebody said, how did you guys write a book when you were still here with the company was only had, 6,000 or 7,000 people in it. But still a lot of moving parts and things going on. You didn't have a big staff. How did you get the time to write a best-selling book? And my immediate answer was Tuesdays with Gary. And there was a book at the time called Tuesdays with Maury. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it just hit me. It was a funny connection. And I said, yeah, every Tuesday afternoon from 1 to 4, it was book time. That was what we did. We time blocked for 3 hours. And then sometimes we would do an outline of the whole thing. Sometimes we'd work on one chapter, things, we would use it. We didn't have a hard, rigid schedule of how we used, but we gave it that 3 hours every week. And we would be in the middle of that and there'd be a knock on the door and Mo Anderson would stick her head in and say, Gary, I just need you for 2 minutes. And he'd say, Mo, we're writing a book. Please talk to Valerie and get on my calendar. His CEO with an urgent need to talk to him? No. Focus.
Yeah, impressive.
I know.
So what is not in MREA that you think should be in MREA?
I think what isn't in MREA is enough caution about the pitfalls. That would be the only thing I'd say. I think it's there, but it isn't, it almost maybe ought to be an appendix. Oh, by the way, all this can go wrong. We always used to say Gary Keller was the most black-hatted optimist we ever knew, right? Because he believes everything's possible, and he also believes everything can go wrong, right? Murphy's laws will all settle in. So the interesting thing is that kind of combination, and I think that you write this and here's the plan and here's the potential and we even say, be careful about this or whatever. But at the end of it, there ought to be like this warning sign, don't do this. And that would say, so I would say that's the only thing. I think that the combination of the two is brilliant. I don't know what Gary and Jay have in mind for MREA 2. I don't know that. I haven't been privy to their discussions about that. I'm sure it'll be very good. I think the other thing we didn't put in there, and it wasn't really meant to do, was the whole expansion thing. Mm-hmm. And Gary always had this idea, his early idea, by the way, very interesting, was to franchise agents. That was his early idea. In other words, that an agent would have their systems and all that stuff, and through our marketplace in Keller Williams, they'd basically create a sub-franchise, and they wouldn't have to go through all the legal or financial problems of doing a franchise because we were already the franchise, but they could license their systems and their operating to other agents that would want to do it. But we really found, because agents like to have their own name on the gate, on the gate, right? That didn't kind of fly. And I think expansion then became where Gary went with that idea that you can be in multiple markets with multiple different top producers working under your umbrella. And, so I know we've done a whole bunch of courses and probably books on expansion, but that would be the only thing. Maybe it could be hinted at in there. But I think one of the things that makes MREA such a classic is its timeless truths, and nothing in it is gimmicky. nothing in it is kind of timely for the moment, the market of the moment. So I kind of like just leaving it like it is.
Yeah, love it. Last question, before we'll open it up, maybe for maybe one or two from the audience here. You've spent your lifetime training the systems and models of Keller Williams.
Yes.
And
not my whole lifetime, but 12 years
yeah,
of my lifetime.
yeah. Well, and here you are again, right? Here you are
no,
again,
I'm back in it.
leading the
Yes, I'm
charge.
happy to be
Yeah.
back in it. Yes.
So what has all of that training that you've done, what has that taught you? What have you learned out of teaching this?
Well, it's interesting. When you get to a certain stage of your life, it's the time to give and not learn, right? And it really sounds weird for someone who's as committed to learning and as curious as I am. I mean, I read a ton of books and all that stuff, but I believe you reach a point where what you're doing is you're making use of what you've learned, not jamming more back into your head. You understand? I have so many people who say, oh, I need to take this course or I need to get this certification. I go, no, just go do with use what you already know. So in a way, when I came to Keller Williams, I was really using what I knew, plus also then interacting with the people that were doing it, right? And having creative ideas around that. Now, the interesting thing is, when I left Keller Williams, the reason I left, because it was just time for me for a new adventure in my life. I've always been a seeker and looking for new things. And I knew we had written all the books that needed to be written. I knew the company had all the foundational pieces to grow as far as it wanted to grow. And it was time for me to do something else. So I went out, I started a little company called Free Enterprise Warriors. I started a series of podcasts called Warrior Talks about entrepreneurial issues. And then a gentleman reached out to me in 2012 and said, I think you could help us. We want to grow a national company of business to business networking. And so I helped them build their foundation. I started their university. I built their course, and I helped their owner, his name's Chaz Wilson, to write his foundational book called 5+1, The Entrepreneur's Formula for Success. And so I kind of got to do that, but in a broader entrepreneurial realm. And now in writing my book, Seeker, I'm really kind of dealing more with people and their personal and spiritual issues because that ultimately fascinates me.
Love it.
Yeah.
Loredana, have you got some questions for us there?
We have one from Sam. What pitfall would be at the top of that list that you were talking about, Dave?
What would be?
What pitfall would be at the top of that list?
Okay. I would say not understanding the power of your administrative team to build the foundation of your business on. The first foundation you build on it is your own acumen, your own wisdom, and your own knowledge of how real estate should work in your mind. The way you provide service, the way you close a transaction, the way you talk to people, the way you lead generate. So that's the foundation of the business. But the second foundation is your administrative team, because they add stability underneath you. Most top producers leave a wake behind them, a mess, right? They just keep on roaring and they don't take care of the details, which that's their nature, by the way. That's why they're top producers. So that's not a judgment against them. So what they need is somebody to pick up the pieces, somebody to organize behind them, somebody to lay down a foundation. Now, two things will happen. We say it in the book. One is they'll help you build the systems and models of your office, your ops manual. They'll help you do that. Number two is they'll make sure things go the way you want them to go. They'll make sure that your service standards get implemented. And then, particularly if you hire then a transaction manager, the two of them, and this person will oversee the consistency of your lead generation, because by this time, you're moving more from prospecting into marketing. And they will manage your database, they'll manage your mailers going out, your 12 directs, your 8x8s, 33 touch. They'll supervise that. And the final thing there's two final things, that they will be the ones that your consumers remember when they realize how great it was to work with you. Because they will have more contact with that administrative staff during the transaction than they had with you at the front end, right? So they will feel the quality of your, and of course, if you have a good admin, they're always making you look good. Hi, Dave asked me to call you. Hey, we were talking this morning about your closing, and Dave wanted me to be sure that you knew that this was, they'll make you look good. And the final thing they'll do when you start to build a team, they'll hold everyone else accountable. There's nothing better, and I don't mean to be sexist with this, than having a house mother at the center of your company. somebody who has that motherly instinct, tough love, keeps things organized, makes people do their homework and clean up their room, and then tells you when they're not. Because sometimes as a top producer with other people, it's hard to know, because they're faking you on their numbers and what they're doing and all that stuff. And this admin will know what really is going on. They'll tell you the truth.
Yeah, I've heard Gary talk a lot about the admin side of your business really is the keeper of culture. Like a lot of people get that messed up, that the salespeople are actually your cultural piece.
No.
It is not. The
No.
salespeople come and go.
They do.
It is the operation.
And they don't even think stability,
Yeah.
They don't even think stability, but your really good admins, the SCs, they think stability and consistency. And that's what you want underneath your drive.
Love that.
Yeah.
Well, we're a few minutes over here. I just can't tell you how much we appreciate you and taking the time to do this. And
well, listen, I want your people to know that you invested in bringing me here. There was a cost for that, and you did it. I just want you to know. And Loredana just stepped right up and talked to me fast and talked to you and made this happen. I love the can-do attitude of your team, but I want them to know that you brought this here. And the other thing I want to remind them is dave@kw.com. If you want a copy of those things I said, just tell me what you got out of this. That's the main thing. What ideas, what thoughts, how did you like this? What did you get out of it? And I will send those documents to you. But Andy, it's been an honor to be here, and I really wish you guys all the best through this shift. I know that you're going to come out the other side just blowing and going. Gary Keller, it's interesting. We said we were born in adversity. We came out of the 2007, 2010 thing better than anybody else. We didn't lose very many offices. We stayed profitable. We were teaching Profit Camp to everybody. Bob Kalinske was, and so then look at our massive growth after that. And we went up to the 160, 170, not just because we were focused on growth, but because we were built for it. Now, what's going to happen now is Gary Keller has challenged to say, and this was before all this market shift happened, he said, I see us getting to 20% market share. We're at 10% now. We're the biggest company there is, but I see our agents making a lot more money and getting to 20% market share. And I think once we come out of this chaos, we'll get there. Don't you?
Oh, I totally do. In Atlanta, in Metro Atlanta, we're 22%. So we're going for 40.
Well, you were always, what was exactly double it. I love that. But what's interesting? It's interesting how role models matter. That's what we say in Tony Robbins. Role models matter. They're the models. And so we found for our agents, we wanted to get the best agents and have them be our role models and learn from them. And we wanted our best owners to be role models for each other. And then, of course, Bob and Kay stepped in and they showed us how to run a region. I mean, we knew how to run it, but they really got it and they implemented it. And look at what that Southeast region has done. It's phenomenal.
Yeah,
to 22% market share in a city the size of Atlanta is breathtaking.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's all about people. Great people. Well, thanks, man. Hey, I hope I see you at Mega Camp.
Well, when is Mega Camp? I
don't know. We don't know when it's going to be, but I hope to see you.
We hope it's not just virtual, right? We actually hope we get to once again go high fives and up close and personal. But no, I look forward to that. And if there's ever a time I can do anything else for you and the gang, Andy, let me know.
I appreciate it, Dave.
All right.
Best to you. Be well.
All right. You too.
Take care. Thanks, Loredana.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks.